Jesus had been going around doing his ministry, healing people from all kinds of illnesses and diseases, performing miracles, talking about suffering, death. He's now getting ready to head to the cross. Now, before Jesus takes his next big step, now this is the human part of Jesus, okay? Jesus is divine, but is human, okay? He wants to be sure that this is the right time to make this move. He needs some confirmation from God. And so he takes Peter, James, and John up to a high mountain to pray and to seek guidance. While they are on the mountain, Jesus' face changed its appearance, and his clothes became dazzling white. And suddenly, there were two men talking with him, Moses and Elijah. Now, Moses was the greatest of all the lawgivers. He was supremely and uniquely the one who brought God's laws to all prophets. Elijah was the greatest of the prophets. He spoke to the people with unique directness. Now, Moses and Elijah told Jesus, go on, that he was taking the right move and do it now, right now. So, how about that? If you're looking for some guidance, and you get to talk with Jesus, Moses, and Elijah, you probably got it from a good source. If you're a Christian. God was saying to Jesus what Moses and Elijah said. Go on, you have not chosen wrong. Now is the time to head toward Jerusalem, and to suffer, and to pain, and to hurt. And so this is the time that Jesus did that. And it was very, very important. Now, we call this particular part of the scripture a transfiguration. When Jesus is bright and is all lit up, so to speak, the word transfiguration is our word for metamorphosis. Caterpillars, butterflies, that's what happens to them. There's a change in them. Let me read to you what metamorphosis means. A profound change in form from one state to the next in the life of an organism. Any complete change in appearance, character, and circumstance. The problem with most of us is that after we see things differently, we don't do anything about it. We still say, stay the same old, we don't watch out. Now, metamorphosis is a change from the inside out. Any change from the inside out can sometimes be painful. So we have to understand that. The disciples, after this experience, saw things differently. They saw Jesus differently. And they saw things differently. Now, what would it take? What does it take for us to see things differently? Do we have a metamorphosis in our future? Do we have a transfiguration experience ahead for us? I don't know. We do a lot of things to try to look good. We have cosmetics. We lose weight. We have wrinkles. We use Botox or whatever we do. We lose our hair, like me. Some people don't. Like, so we try to do all these things to make us look better. But just because we look better on the outside doesn't mean we're necessarily better on the inside. So often, it's the same old, same old. This experience, listen to me, of seeing is strange. In the Bible, time and time again, the Pharisees have two good eyes, but they're blind. They don't see Jesus. And that's strange. The religious people of Jesus' day, the Sadducees and the Pharisees, didn't have a clue. But the people who were not religious, the tax collectors, the sinners, the outcasts, they knew who Jesus was. They saw it. People who we didn't think ought to see it, they saw it. How about that? So we have to be careful. Just because we're religious and highly educated doesn't mean things. I want a couple of stories I want to tell you. Steve Covey has a best-selling book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He tells this story of his life on a New York subway. He says the people were sitting quiet on the subway. Some were reading newspapers, some were dozing, like you do in church sometimes. Others were contemplating with their eyes closed. It was rather peaceful calm. At one stop, a man and his children entered the car. The children were soon yelling back and forth, throwing things, grabbing newspapers from the people. It was all very disturbing. And yet the father just sat there and did nothing. It was like he was in a daze. It was not different. It is not difficult to be irritated. And Steve Covey could not believe this man was so insensitive and let his children just run amok and not do anything about it. It was easy to see that everyone else was being annoyed or getting annoyed. So finally, Covey, with what he thought was admirable restraint and patience, said to the man, "Sir, your children are really disturbing a lot of people. I wonder if you could control them a little bit better." And the man lifted his gaze as if coming out of consciousness and said, "Oh, you're right. I guess I should do something about it. We just came from the hospital where their mother died about an hour ago. I don't know what to think or do. I guess I don't know how to handle it either. Usually they behave themselves really well." Here's what Stephen Covey says. Can you imagine how I felt at that moment? Suddenly, I saw things differently about this man and his children. And because I saw things differently, I behaved differently. My irritation vanished. All of a sudden, I didn't have to worry about controlling my attitude or behavior. My heart was filled with this man's pain and hurts. Feelings of compassion and sympathy flooded freely. "Your wife just died. Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you tell us about it? What can we do to help?" And so what's the main truth in this insight from Stephen Covey? Nothing changed in that subway. Everything was the same. Same people, same irritation, same kids. What changed was a new way of looking at this behavior and attitude once we found out what was going on. For Steve Covey, it was a moment of transfiguration, a time of metamorphosis, a change from the inside out. Now remember what we said earlier. That anytime there's a change from the inside out, we see things differently. The disciples, after their experience on the mountain with Moses and Elijah and Jesus, they saw things differently. They saw Jesus differently and themselves differently. And so Stephen Covey, because of what he saw and experienced on that subway car, he experienced a moment of transfiguration. One more story. There's a woman named Mary Ann Bird. Tells a story about herself. "I grew up knowing I was different and I hated it. I was born with a cleft palate, and when I started school, classmates made it clear to me how I must look to others. A little girl with a misshapen lip, crooked nose, lopsided teeth, and garbled speech. When my schoolmates would ask, 'What happened to your lip?' here's what I told them. I told them that I had fallen and cut it on a piece of glass." Listen to what she says. "Somehow it seemed more acceptable than having suffered an accident than to be born that way." Think about it. "I was convinced that no one outside of my family could love me. There was, however, a teacher in the second grade that we all adored, Mrs. Leonard. She was short, round, happy, sparkling lady. Now, every year, we'd have this hearing test. And this was probably before they had hearing, all these special things you could do. And she said, I was virtually deaf in one of my ears. But when I have taken the test in the past years, I discovered that if I did not press my hand tightly against my ear, as I was instructed to do, I could figure it out. I knew what she would be saying. Miss Leonard gave this test to everyone in the room. And finally, it was my turn. I knew from past years that we stand against the door, covering one ear. The teacher sitting at her desk would whisper something, and we would have to say it back to them, like, the sky is blue, the sky is blue. Do you have new shoes? Do you have new shoes? But this year, Mrs. Leonard said something very different and life-changing words. I had waited for those words all my life, which God must have put into her mouth. Those 7 words which changed my life. Mrs. Leonard said in her whispered voice, I wish you were my little girl. I wish you were my little girl. Probably the first time anybody ever said that to her. And for Mary Ann Burns, a young girl in the 2nd grade with a cleft palate, those 7 words changed her life forever. It became her moment of transfiguration. She saw herself differently from the inside out. Before Mrs. Leonard said those words, Mary Ann Burns herself saw herself as ugly and different. After Miss Leonard said those words, she saw beauty and possibilities and potential for herself. Her moment of transfiguration, her moment of transformation, she saw herself differently from the inside out. In closing, let me say a few words and tell one more story. I would like to see people, especially in the church, be a little more joyful. Some of us church and preacher types are so joyless, we sometimes don't smile even though we can. John Ortberg tells about a man named Hank. Hank was never happy. He always found fault with everybody, always. So one day somebody asked him, are you happy, Hank? And he said, yes. And somebody said, well, tell your face. See, Hank was the type of person who was going to live like that forever if he didn't have a transformational experience. My prayer for all of us is to simply see people and know that we are loved. My prayer for all of us during this time of the year is that we would have a transformational experience, a metamorphosis that will help change us and those around us. Through Jesus Christ, all this is possible, not only for us, but for all, and it's possible now. I close with this. In this church, we have, during the week, people coming in off the street. They're homeless, a lot of them are. They can wash their clothes, they can take a shower, whatever. And then we know also that people, there's all kinds of food outlets. We go, we help people that need feeding. When I was in Northern Virginia, at Berkeley United Methodist Church, we had this mission thing called Martha's Table. It was on Wednesday night. We had it once a month. And choir came, children came. And here's what we would do. We would make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And also we would have bologna. And everybody could participate, going around the room. Now, I like the peanut butter and jelly better. Bologna was less messier. But anyway, it was good. And we would make these sandwiches, put them in a plastic bag, put them in a rack, and fill it up. And they'd fill them up, and we'd make 3,000 or 4,000 sandwiches. Put them in the basket, and then put them in a truck, take them down to D.C. And the next morning, the next day, all the homeless and sick people were alcoholics, whoever was there, they got these sandwiches. At some point, we had the person who started Martha's Table come to our church. I guess he went to every church, I assume. And we just asked him some questions. And somebody asked him the question, sir, in all these peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and all that, do you think anybody's really changed? Is an alcoholic not an alcoholic? Or whatever? And what the man said? That's a good question. He said, but listen, when I started this ministry, the Lord spoke to me, not audibly, but through his mind and brain and touch. Here's what he said. You love them, you feed them, I'll judge them. Say that again. You love them, you feed them, I'll judge them. The thing we have to learn as people come here, homeless or whoever they are or wherever they are and what we see, we have to be very careful about not judging them. For whatever reason. We see these people drive up sometimes in big cars and everything. We don't know why that's happening. That's not our business. God will judge them, not us. So what we have to do is to be the most Christ-like people we can be. We love them, we feed them, and the Lord will judge them. And I'd rather for the Lord to judge me than any human being. My friends, this helps us to be transformed people. It helps us to be changed and different when we do these things. As a church, may God help us to continue to do that. And this, my friends, on a day like today, is the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. It gives us all hope. Amen?
Amen.